Hello everyone and welcome to part 3 in the Make a Hangman game in Python series. In the previous video, which was part 2, we focused mainly on the graphics of the Hangman. In this video, we will finish up the game, so let's jump right in. I want to start out by saying that I made one minor change since part 2, and that is that in part 2, over here, where I typed in blank_word.append, I had a dash. Now I changed it to underscore. Of course, this is just my opinion and I'm just pointing it out. If you like the dash better, you can go ahead and keep it that way. I'm just pointing it out that I changed it to underscore. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to do is add an if statement. This if statement is going to print out how many attempts the player has remaining in the game. So we'll go type in if, an opening and closing bracket, attempt is not equal to 0 and there is an underscore in blank word. We want to, now before we go ahead and type what we want to do, I'm going to explain this to you. So what this means is if the player's attempt is not equal to 0. So if the player has more than one attempt, basically meaning that if the player hasn't failed yet, and there is an underscore in blank word. An underscore in blank word means that the player has not won yet, because if the player has won, all of the underscores or dashes in blank word will be replaced by the correct letters. But if there is still an underscore in blank word, that means that a few of the letters have not been guessed yet and the player still needs to guess them, meaning that they haven't won yet. So this full if statement means that if the player still has attempts remaining, still has a few attempts remaining and hasn't won yet, then we want to print out back to the player how many attempts they have remaining, just so they know. So we'll go ahead and type in print, open two sets of brackets, and in quotes, of course, we will create a new line and type in you have, and then opening and closing curly braces, attempts remaining. Now, just before the closing bracket, we will type in dot format and then open up a new set of brackets, and within those brackets we will type in attempts. So that is done, and we will move on to the next part. So the next part is that we want to make sure that all of the player's inputs are valid. What I mean by valid is when the player is asked to guess a letter, we need to make sure that that they actually guess a letter. We need to make sure that they're not guessing a number, or they're not guessing more than one letter, or anything like that. So we're going to use the try and except method for that. So we'll start out with a try guess. So we're creating a new variable. Guess is equal to string input, and within the input we will have a new line, and we will ask to please select a letter between A and Z, and after the closing bracket we will type in dot lower. So we have our input and we are converting the player's answer to a string. So the variable guess will store the player's guess, whatever they guessed to this question. The answer to this question, whatever the player answered, will be stored in guess. And of course, dot lower just makes all of the player's answers lowercase. Now we will add the except. We will print that is not valid input. please try again. And then we will finish off by a continue. So there we have our try and accept. So what we want to do now is check if the player's guess is a letter or not. So the first thing that we want to do is type in else. If not guess dot is alpha. So is alpha, this function or method, function slash method, it basically checks if some input or anything is a letter. So if not guess dot is alpha, this means that if the player's guess, and we get this guess from the variable that we created in the try. So if the player's guess is not a letter, we want to print that is not a letter. Please, space, please try again. And we will have a continue. Next, we want to have a else if the length of guess is greater than 1. So what we're doing here is we're making sure that the user's guess or the player's guess is not more than 1 letter. Because if it is more than 1 letter, then we want to tell them to try again. We want them to guess only 1 letter at a time. So if the length of the player's guess is greater than 1, so if they guess more than 1 character, then we want to print that is more than 1 letter. Please try again. And again, we will have a continue. Then we have another if. And we're going to do if guess in guessed underscore guessed letters. If guess in guessed letters, print you have already guessed that letter. Please try again. Now remember, guessed letters is a list that we created at the start right here, and guessed letters stores all of the player guesses. Of course, we didn't implement that feature yet, but we will have the player's guesses. All of the players' guesses will be added to guessed letters. So that way we can check if a player has already guessed that letter, and if they have, we will remember not to take away their attempt, not to decrease their attempt, and instead just give them a reminder that they have already guessed that letter, so they can guess a different letter. So we'll have another continue and else. So in this else, that means if everything is good with the player's guess, nothing's wrong, everything's perfect, we will pass. So now what we need to do is we need to implement into our program the feature to add all of our player guesses to the guessed letters list. And it's very simple to do that. It's just one line. And since guessed letters is a list, we will start by typing the name of the list, guessed letters. And there is a built-in function in Python called .append. You use .append whenever you want to add something to a list. And guessed letters is a list, so we can do guessed letters.append And .append takes in only one parameter, and it's whatever you want to add to the list. And in this case, we want to add the guess. So that's it. That's all you need to do to add guess, the player guesses to the guessed letters list. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to know what to do if the player's guess is not in the chosen word. So if they guessed incorrectly. So we'll start with a simple if statement. If guess not in chosen word, attempt is minus equals 1, and we want to print Hangman, and we can add these square brackets. The length of Hangman minus 1. And another minus attempt. So what this whole line of code does, I apologize if this seems confusing to you, but what it does is it prints out the next Hangman graphic. For example, if you already have the head and you get it, if you guess incorrect, then this line of code will go and print out the next graphic. So it will print out the head and the torso. So what this line of code is doing is it prints out the Hangman graphic, which is what you would do if you're playing the game on pen and paper. You would just draw the graphic every time someone got incorrect, every time someone guessed incorrect, and that is what we're doing right here. We are printing out the Hangman graphic every time someone guesses incorrect. Else. So now we want to add an else. So if the guess is in the chosen word. So now we have to do something very interesting. Because the thing is, if we just go directly to replacing the letter in the blank word with the letter that we guessed correctly, which is what we want to do, it will do it correctly, but the thing is, it will not work with double letters. So if there's a word like sport that has two S's, so if you type in S, it will add S, it will add the S, but only the first S. And if you try to add the second S, it will give you the reminder, because remember we implemented the if guess in guessed letter, because the computer knows that you already guessed S. And if you try to guess the second S, even though there is a second S in the word sports, it will say you have already guessed that letter, please try again. So we will have to take a different approach. So what we are going to do, we are going to set a boolean variable called search more, and we're going to set this to true. Then we're going to do start search index, and we're going to set this to 0. So we have two variables. Next, we're going to have a while loop. While search more, so while search more is equal to true, we want to, and here I'm going to add another try and except. Try found at index is, so this is a new variable that we are creating, is equal to chosen word dot index, and in a set of brackets, guess start search index. Then hit enter, and blank word found at index is equal to guess. Start search index is equal to sorry about that. Start search index is equal to found at index plus 1. And finally, the except search more is equal to false. So, all of this code, which I will explain to you in a second, will help us and will fix our problem of the double letter. So what this does is we created a Boolean variable called search more and we have set it to true. Then we also create another variable called start search index, which we will set to 0. So while search more is set to true, which is already set to, we are going to create another variable, found at index, and we're going to assign found at index chosen word dot index guess start search index. Then we are going to do blank word, and in the index section we'll do found at index is equal to guess. And then start search index is equal to found at index plus 1. And once all this is finished, if we will continue on, and if the computer runs this and there's no result, it will go to the except and it will turn search more to false. So this basically checks each index of chosen word. So all of this code is checking each index of chosen word, and we are checking chosen word each index to make sure that there are no double letters. And if there is a double letter, it will replace both letters at the same time. And we will do start search index is equal to found at index plus 1 to go on to the next index every time. And if there is a word like chair or table where there is no double word, this will return nothing, and it will go to the except where search more is equal to false, and you can continue on with the Hangman game. So one last time, this whole chunk of code is helping us and letting us guess two letters and add them into blank word at once. So we do not have the issue anymore. And what we use in this chunk of code to fix the problem is mainly index, because as you can see we're using a lot of index to fix the problem. We are using index to fix the problem, because index is the only thing that can help us. You can think of this as a for loop. It's iterating through all of the indexes one by one of chosen word, and it's looking if there are two of the same letter. So let us move on. The next thing that we want to do is we want to print .join blank word, because of course if you guess correctly, or even if you don't guess correctly, you want to see the blank word. But if we just have print blank word without this, then it will be printed as a list, because blank word is, as we can see over here, blank word is a list or an array. And if you print arrays, they come out as they come out with these two square brackets, and they come out with all the commas and all of the quotes and everything. But we don't want that. That is why we are using .join. It will join everything up in the array like it's a string, and it will print that out. So let's continue. The next thing that we want to do is we have to check if the attempts is equal to 0. If the attempts is equal to 0, we want to say that the game is over and is finished. Else, if we want to say that the player won. So if attempt is equal to 0, print sorry, the game is the game is over. The word was plus chosen word. So chosen word. So if you lose, it says, sorry, the game is over, the word was, and then it tells you what the word was, the printing out chosen word. Then we want to print out a question. On a new line, we want to print out, would you like to play a game? And here we have to use some input again. Response is equal to, so the player's response to this question is equal to input. We will have some quotes and a greater than symbol. Dot lower. If response not in yes or y. So if the player's response is not either yes or y or whatever you want the response to be to signal that the player wants to play again. So if the response is not in yes or y, we want to just set play again. Whoops, we need to add the colon, of course. We set play again, which is a variable that we set near the top right here, play again. We want to set play again to be equal to false, and we will print thanks for playing Hangman. And finally, we will break, and that is the end of the program. That is the end of the game for the player. That's not the end of the program. So what we did is, if the attempt is equal to 0, sorry, the game is over. The word was, and then it tells you what the word was. And then it prints out, would you like to play again? Takes the player's input, whether they would like to play again or not. If the player types in yes or y, for me, you could add anything else to this list. Then they want to play again. And if they do not, which is what this if statement is for, play again is set to false, and we will print out thanks for playing Hangman, and we will break. Now we want to go to the next if statement, which is the case if the player wins. If the underscore, or again, if dash, if you decided to keep it as a dash, if underscore or dash is not in blank word, we want to print on a new line, congratulations, and then an opening and closing curly brace was the word. And then again, before the closing bracket, dot format, chosen word, not format. So chosen word will be in these curly braces, and it says congratulations. Then we want to print out again on a new line, would you like to play again? And from here we can just copy paste all this right here, and we will break. But that is not the end of our program. There is still some things that we need to fix. For example, we need to fix the loop. There needs to be a while loop, otherwise this whole program will not work. So we need a while loop at the very beginning. Actually, not at the very beginning, right after we set the variable attempt. So right after all the variables, after we set all the variables, the main basic variables, we want a while attempt is greater than 0. And basically we want everything from start to end. So we can just copy all of this. We want everything from start to end to be indented, because all of this is part of this one loop. Sorry, not that. This one while loop. So now we are ready to try out our game, our Hangman game. So we just run our code. You have 6 attempts remaining and perfect. It prints out the starting gallows. Please select a letter between A to Z. So let's see. I see that. Yes, we will get rid of that. We need to add an end for there, or otherwise it's just going to print it out there and we don't want that. So we're running it again. There we go. Oh, whoops. That is the wrong way. / and then we have the end. Yeah, that's correct. On that. Yes, there we go. Please select a letter between A and Z. Let's say F. And we have an error at line 117, so we will try and fix that. If not, guess that is alpha, and we are getting an error there. And so I have found out what the issue was, and that is we have not spelled is alpha. I have not spelled is alpha correctly. It is ALPHA, and save this, and this should work right now. Please select a letter between A and Z. We'll try E. And E, surprisingly, is not in the word, and the head, as you can see right there, is drawn. Now we will try A. A is in the word, and as you can see, it perfectly replaces one of the underscores. Next we'll go to I, O, and U. So we are done all of the vowels. Now we will try some of the other ones. L, M. Let's see what this could be. Okay, so let's try the P. Yep. R, G. Yep. Programming. And you can see that when we type the G, when we enter G, the G appeared in both spots at once. So our little chunk of code worked. And finally the N. And we get the congratulations, programming was the word, and we get the would you like to play again, but we get another error at line 162, response is not defined. I think that might be another spelling error. 162 response. Of course, in this if statement we need to add this response. We need to, yes, now we have set the variable of response to the input. So now that we have that, we didn't have this before, so that's why I was confused what response was. So now we've added it, let's save it and run it again. So this time I'm going to try doing a letter. And as you can see, a number. As you can see, I typed in 1 and it says that is not a letter. Please try again. Let's go A, B, C. A, B, C. That is more than one letter. Please try again. So everything is working. And we'll try H. And H is not in there. E, A, I, O, U. I think it is programming again. Yes. And we get, congratulations, programming was the word, would you like to play again? And of course we can type in yes, and it restarts again. Please select a letter between A and Z. E is right there, Z, and the gallows are drawn. And we have a perfectly working Hangman game in Python. So that is it for this video, and that also closes up the series of Make a Hangman game in Python. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit a thumbs up, and I will be back with more content very soon.